Lloyd was an ugly low-life loser, and even after reincarnating, he carried all the memories of his pathetic past. He was such a loser that when life handed him a shot at reincarnation, he chose to hit the books and maybe change his fate, but it doesn't really look like it's going to be that easy. Let's stick with him and see if Lloyd actually manages to pull it off. So our looser MC Lloyd opened his eyes and found a group of maids around him. They were excited and emotional, happy that the prince had finally woken up. However, Lloyd did not think like a baby. In his past life, he had used magic, so his first instinct was to attack. Immediately, he tried to cast a fireball, but when he looked at his hands, he realized they were tiny. He was shocked to see that he had a baby's body. Because he was distracted, the fireball shot off in the wrong direction and blasted a hole in the castle wall. Fortunately, fireworks outside covered the noise. Everyone outside believed the sound came from the celebration of Prince Lloyd's birth. Meanwhile, inside the room, the maids were shaken. They began rethinking their life choices. Working near a baby who could destroy a wall did not feel safe anymore. After a moment, when the maids tried to find Lloyd again, he slipped away. While wandering the castle halls, he bumped into some government officials. They were shocked to see him walking around alone, yet they quickly promised they would not report him. One official even tried to act friendly and invited Lloyd to go hunting someday. Instead of responding, Lloyd refused and slipped away again. Once he left, the officials discussed him. Since he was the seventh prince, they believed he would not play an important role in the royal family. However, one official pointed out that a baby who destroyed a wall without effort should not be ignored. They even wondered if he was the reincarnation of a legendary sorcerer. Their guess seemed wild, yet it was close to the truth. In reality, Lloyd was the reincarnation of a sorcerer. In his previous life, he had lived only for magic. He did not understand why he remembered everything after being reborn, nor why he was born into a royal family. Even so, none of that mattered to him. He felt pure excitement knowing he could study magic again. Eventually, when he discovered the castle library, he was amazed. The library was larger and more complete than any magical library he had seen in his past life. He immediately started reading, but before he could go far, Silpha found him. Silpha was his trainer and tutor. Without wasting time, she took him outside and began intense training. Even though Lloyd was only 8 years old, she expected discipline and effort. Lloyd tried to keep up, yet he did not understand why a prince like him needed combat training. He was far from the line of inheritance. In response, Silpha told him that a royal should be educated and capable, no matter their position. For 3 years, Silpha had trained Lloyd. She was strict, but she believed he could improve. Lloyd did not enjoy her strictness. However, he understood that the faster he showed improvement, the sooner he could return to studying magic. During training, Silpha ordered him to stand in position, and they started sparring. This time, something changed. Lloyd matched her movements with ease. Silpha noticed and was impressed. In truth, Lloyd was cheating. He used magic that let him copy her movements perfectly. Even with that, his small child body lacked the strength and reach Silpha had. As a result, he used more magic. He extended his sword, strengthened his body, and even floated a little to match her movements. Silpha called him out for cheating. Lloyd panicked, expecting punishment. Surprisingly, Silpha praised him for using 2 spells at once, which was difficult even for adult palace mages. Lloyd kept quiet about the fact that he was actually using 4 spells. Later, Silpha brought Lloyd to bathe. She held him firmly because he had avoided bath time in the past to continue reading. Lloyd felt embarrassed sitting in her lap. During the bath, a maid took the chance to tell him a warning about the forbidden library. According to legend, a demon named Grimoire was sealed inside a book hidden in a restricted part of the library. Silpha dismissed the story, saying it was nothing more than a fairy tale. Lloyd remained silent, too flustered by the situation to respond. Unfortunately, the maids misunderstood his expression and assumed he was scared. They offered their beds if he needed comfort. While they argued playfully, Lloyd slipped away again. That night, Lloyd decided to find the forbidden library. He walked through the castle's dark corridors and used an air spell to bend light around him, making himself nearly invisible. Guards stood watch nearby, talking about a demon sealed inside the library. Quietly, Lloyd sneaked past them and reached a sealed door. The barrier was strong, formed by 10 mages. It should have been impossible for a child to break. Nevertheless, Lloyd broke the seal with little effort. He entered and discovered a hidden library filled with rare knowledge. He felt amazed. He browsed several books and enjoyed every moment. Before leaving, he decided to restore the barrier so the guards would not face punishment. However, before he could fix it, a book flew open. The demon Grimoire appeared. The demon seemed shocked to see a child standing before him. Immediately, Grimoire tried to convince Lloyd to unseal him completely. He promised treasures, ancient magic, and anything Lloyd could want. However, Lloyd noticed that Grimoire's spell quality looked weak and sloppy. He planned to leave Grimoire sealed and go back to reading. He had more important things to do. Suddenly, Grimoire changed tactics. He offered to teach ancient magic. Lloyd became interested and created a magic key to remove the seal. Once freed, Grimoire was surprised. He immediately attacked Lloyd with a ball of purple fire, assuming it would kill him. Yet, when the smoke cleared, Lloyd stood unharmed. He admired the spell rather than showing fear. Grimoire kept attacking, confused by Lloyd's calm reaction. None of his spells passed through Lloyd's barrier. Lloyd even opened a small gap to test the fire directly. It burned his finger, but he did not panic. Growing desperate, Grimoire used his strongest spell. Lloyd cancelled it easily. Grimoire tried to escape and ran into another barrier Lloyd had already placed. Instead of fear, Lloyd asked Grimoire to show defensive magic, then used his own spell to knock the demon down. Grimoire admitted he could not block it. Lloyd restored the damaged room with magic. Finally, realizing he had no chance of winning, Grimoire surrendered.
I surrender!
He agreed to become Lloyd's familiar. To avoid alarming others, he changed his form into a small goat. Secretly, he planned to take over Lloyd's body someday. However, when he sensed the enormous power inside Lloyd, he gave up on that idea. He accepted that being obedient was the better choice. In the end, Lloyd returned to the forbidden library. With Grimoire quiet beside him, Lloyd sat down and continued doing what he loved most, reading magic books. Lloyd lived in the royal mansion, where he quietly tried to avoid attention. One day, while he was in the library with Grimoire, the talking book warned him that someone was coming. Moments later, the visitor turned out to be Prince Albert, the second prince of the Saloum Kingdom. People in the kingdom saw Albert as a genius and believed he would become the next king. Albert had special permission to use the private library, and occasionally, he allowed Lloyd to join him there. However, Lloyd could not use much magic inside the castle because he did not want to stand out. He wanted a peaceful life and had no interest in fighting for the throne. Later, when Albert took him to the training range, Lloyd felt thankful because it finally gave him space to practice freely. Instead of showing off, Lloyd tried to stay unnoticed. When he cast fireballs, he curved them so they only grazed the target. The crowd watching him felt disappointed and assumed he was weak. Even so, Grimoire understood how much control and precision that kind of spell required. Lloyd did not care what others thought. He only wanted to improve himself quietly. Afterward, Albert allowed Lloyd to rest, but Lloyd felt excited to try something new. He attempted a dual incantation, casting 2 spells at once, which surprised even himself. Grimoire panicked and called the attempt reckless. Despite that, Lloyd stayed calm and asked Grimoire to cast an infernal fireball. Grimoire acted confident, yet he lost control when the spell became unstable. Lloyd explained that he was stacking spells, reciting multiple spells at the same time. He casually said he could stack 100 spells in a single line. Grimoire was shocked because even demons could only manage 2 or 3. Soon after, Lloyd continued experimenting and discovered that he could speak with 2 mouths at once. Grimoire panicked again, thinking Lloyd was preparing to cast 2 high-level spells at the same time. Lloyd told him to calm down, then mixed an infernal fireball with a water spell. This created a huge amount of power. He directed the magic upward into the sky, and everyone in the area saw the strange phenomenon. Meanwhile, back at the castle, some servants doubted that Lloyd had any real power, but Albert defended him. Albert believed that Lloyd was a genius and said he could become a grand sage someday. Suddenly, darkness spread across the sky, confusing the servants. At the same time, Grimoire watched in fear as Lloyd accidentally tore a hole in the atmosphere. Lloyd panicked for a moment, but he quickly fixed it. Grimoire was left questioning who Lloyd really was. The next day, Grimoire complained about doing maid-like tasks for Lloyd. He reminded himself that his job was to take care of Lloyd's well-being, mainly because his long-term plan was to someday steal Lloyd's body. Meanwhile, the incident with the sky tear appeared on the front page of the newspaper, yet nobody knew the cause. Lloyd ignored the news and became interested in a different article, this one about adventurers conquering a D-rank dungeon. They returned with treasure and magic items. Lloyd decided he wanted to visit a dungeon too. Grimoire warned him that people would panic if they discovered Lloyd had left the castle. Even then, Lloyd had a solution. He took an acorn and created a wooden copy of himself, one that moved, talked, and could sense its surroundings. However, the copy might not fool Silpha, the maid who constantly monitored him. To deal with that problem, Lloyd left Grimoire in charge of the wooden duplicate while he secretly slipped out of the mansion. Outside, Lloyd searched for a dungeon. Along the way, Grimoire noticed a fight happening nearby. A girl, who at first seemed weak, suddenly defeated a group of men with impressive martial arts skills. Lloyd saw her breathing technique and realized she was channeling chi. When she looked at him, Lloyd panicked and used magic to change his appearance. He introduced himself as Robert. The girl grew flustered and quickly developed a crush on him. Meanwhile, Lloyd stayed focused on the dungeon. She eagerly agreed to join him. Once inside, she showed off her martial skills, while Lloyd got distracted by glowing stones. She explained more about chi, and Lloyd tried the breathing technique. Even though it was difficult, he managed to sense chi, which surprised both of them. Lloyd became excited about combining chi with sorcery. Back at the mansion, the wooden copy remained in place, and Grimoire enjoyed the rare freedom. Lloyd thanked Grimoire for helping him, which unexpectedly moved Grimoire emotionally. Eventually, the girl defeated the boss easily and opened a treasure chest, but suddenly, the chest triggered a trap. Lloyd rushed in to help her. Something unexpected appeared from the chest, and Lloyd wondered if that was the real boss. Tao felt terrified when she saw the lich. It should not have appeared in a low-level dungeon, and she knew she might not be strong enough to survive. However, when Robert, Lloyd in disguise, asked about the monster, Tao forced herself to act confident and told him to leave. Instead of arguing, Robert wanted to stay and watch because he hoped to learn more about chi from her. Before he could protest, Tao pushed him out of the boss room with one powerful move. She chose to risk her life, hoping she could buy enough time for Robert to escape. Meanwhile, Robert landed outside the room, frustrated and disappointed. He wanted to continue learning from Tao, but now he had no idea where he was. Without a map, he felt lost. He contacted Grimoire, expecting an update, but instead he received a panicked message begging him to return home quickly because something serious was happening at the castle. Back inside the dungeon, Tao continued fighting the lich, but she was slowly losing. She didn't want to die, yet she comforted herself knowing Robert was safe. While she tried to catch her breath, the lich spoke. It recognized her martial arts style and claimed it once devoured someone who fought with the same techniques. The lich mocked chi, calling it a weaker form of magic. Then, as if bored, it sensed Robert and became curious about tasting him instead. Tao had spent her entire life being compared to magic users and looked down on. Earlier, Robert admired her abilities, which made her feel seen and valued. With that memory giving her strength, she gathered everything she had left and unleashed a full-power chi blast. The attack smashed the lich into the wall. The hit drained the last of her strength, and she collapsed to the floor. Unfortunately, the lich stood again, barely scratched, and prepared to kill her. Just before the final strike, Robert returned. He blocked the attack with a magic barrier. He was injured and knew Grimoire needed him back home, but he refused to let Tao die. Tao stared at him in shock. She never expected he would return. Suddenly, the lich fired another spell, but Robert vanished and appeared behind it. He used the chi technique Tao had taught him, but because his body wasn't used to it, he hurt himself. The lich continued its magic attacks. However, Robert kept blocking them while focusing on tightening his technique. Robert wasn't trying to defend forever. Instead, he wanted to merge chi with mana. He remembered Tao's lesson about breathing, inhaled slowly, and used air magic to improve his control. The lich misunderstood, thinking Robert was trying to run away, and fired more spells. At that exact moment, Robert dropped his barrier entirely. The lich assumed its attack would land, but Robert grabbed a stalactite and prepared his final move. He breathed steadily and merged his chi and mana into one clean flow. Even though his attacks were weaker than normal, the precision of his strikes overwhelmed the lich. With full concentration, he pushed forward, ignoring the lich's panic. His refined technique sliced through its defenses, and with one final slash, he cut through the lich and the entire cave. After the battle, Tao was speechless. They checked the treasure chest, but inside was only an old, damaged dagger. Tao thought it was a waste of effort, but Robert kept it anyway because he believed it might be useful. Immediately after, the chest sank into the ground, signaling the dungeon was complete. They escaped before the area collapsed. Outside, Tao asked why Robert used chi instead of magic. She assumed he did it to prove chi was worth learning, but he said he was simply experimenting and enjoyed trying something new. Realizing the urgency, Robert took off quickly. Tao watched him fly away and suddenly realized she never even got his contact information. She might never see him again. Once he was safe, Robert dropped his disguise and returned to being Lloyd. Back at the castle, he found Grimoire exhausted. Silpha had been forcing Grimoire to do sword training, believing Lloyd was becoming too soft. After stopping the training, Lloyd showed Grimoire the old dagger. Grimoire laughed, thinking it was worthless, but Lloyd placed it in hot water and revealed an enchantment called Boost Power. From that moment, Lloyd became interested in enchantment work. He studied what he needed, mana essence. After breaking it down with magic, he discovered it contained oil, silver, and hematite. He collected monster cores for hematite and melted silver coins his father gave him. During this time, he also trained against Silpha to obtain the oil and eventually succeeded. Finally, back in the lab, Lloyd and Grimoire created mana essence. To test it, Lloyd asked Prince Albert for swords. The knights doubted him, but Albert convinced them to cooperate. Lloyd broke several swords before getting the method right, but eventually, he successfully enchanted 50 out of 120 swords. The knights were amazed, and Albert immediately invited him on a monster hunt to test the weapons. Lloyd, Albert, and Grimoire arrived at the forest for a monster hunt. They soon discovered that the monster was near a lake. Lloyd was excited to test his newly enchanted swords. Albert teased Silpha for sticking close to Lloyd, hinting she might like him, but she quickly shut him down with a threat. Suddenly, they were surrounded by kobolds. The soldiers treated them as a warm-up, while Lloyd pretended to be scared. Grimoire, however, knew that Lloyd had already sensed the danger using Tao's spectral detection technique. Lloyd focused on his breath, constantly aware of his surroundings. The fight began, and Lloyd's swords cut through the monsters with precision. Everyone was impressed. Albert praised him as an enchanting prodigy, and Silpha agreed, though Lloyd revealed he hadn't enchanted her sword. A kobold tried to attack, but Tao appeared and took it down. Lloyd almost called her Robert, but noticed she was using key breathing techniques. Tao sensed Robert's presence and realized Lloyd looked strikingly similar to him. Silpha smashed another monster, warning Tao to stay away from Lloyd.
You have been warned.
Tao mentioned her chi techniques and the presence of monsters, raising tension. Albert stepped in and invited Tao to join their group that night. Tao was surprised to learn Albert was a prince and noticed his resemblance to Robert, though less than Lloyd's. Lloyd, hiding nearby, realized Tao's chi skills had likely detected him. He ducked into his tent, only to find Silpha there. They argued, and Tao barged in. Silpha called her an idiot, and Tao called Silpha a maid. Their fight escalated, giving Lloyd a chance to slip away. Albert joked about Lloyd being a lady killer and warned him about complicated women. Meanwhile, the girls knocked out soldiers who had been watching too closely. Albert explained that Tao's skills could help clean an old shrine overnight. Tao realized the monster was already there, a bear-wolf. Silpha told Lloyd to stay close. As the beast attacked, Lloyd noticed its speed. He tried to communicate with Grimoire, but the demon was distracted by the shrine. Tao saved some soldiers, but the bear-wolf proved brutal. Albert drew his sword, apologizing to the wolf but explaining the villagers' suffering. He swung, reciting an incantation that destroyed the bear-wolf in one strike. Everyone was shocked, but Albert credited Lloyd for enchanting the sword. Lloyd thought about adding extra enchantments. Grimoire, distracted, noticed a demon sealed in a nearby shrine. Suddenly, the bear-wolf stirred, and more monsters appeared alongside a voice promising vengeance. The voice belonged to Pazuzu, the demon controlling the bear-wolf. Pazuzu's minions regenerated instantly, feeding on his mana. Grimm explained that Pazuzu manipulated mana like puppet strings and warned that the fight could get worse if he wasn't stopped. Lloyd, however, insisted Grimm teach him mana manipulation. Silpha grew impatient, teasing Tao, who fired back. Grimm cautioned Lloyd, but he insisted on learning. Pazuzu mocked the fighters, especially Lloyd, calling him a coward. Silpha snapped at the demon, insulted by its words about caring for a useless Lloyd. Tao felt fear at Silpha's anger, but Silpha focused entirely on the battle. She insulted the minions and the demon's breath and prepared to end Pazuzu. His minion's regeneration slowed as he focused on healing the bear-wolf. Albert encouraged Silpha to continue her attacks. Meanwhile, Grimm taught Lloyd how to control mana. They began with basic manipulation, including color, shaping, and even adding scents. Lloyd impressed Grimm by showing he had already shaped his mana into a flower with a scent. They paused to enjoy it briefly. Back at the battlefield, Silpha continued attacking Pazuzu relentlessly. Using her dual-blade techniques, she picked up an enchanted soldier's sword, surprising the demon. Pazuzu tried to intimidate her but failed. He devoured her briefly, but she survived and sliced the bear-wolf in half. She revealed her family's dual-blade art and used her diving sparrow technique to decapitate the monster. The demon tried to downplay her skills, but she destroyed the wolf and exposed Pazuzu's presence. Everyone was stunned by her power. Lloyd realized how serious she could be and shaped his mana to reflect her energy. Silpha declared that the only thing the demon could touch was her blade. Silpha told Pazuzu it was time to end things, but she was caught off guard when he showed some new moves. Meanwhile, the team had finished off the minions, though Albert felt there was more to Pazuzu's plan. Suddenly, Pazuzu released a powerful miasma that knocked everyone out, including Silpha. Furious, he blamed her for ruining his century-long plan and attacked, throwing her into a river. Albert tried to help, but he was getting weak fast. Pazuzu then explained that anyone who breathed the miasma would come under his control. Defiant, Silpha mocked him for his bad breath. Before Pazuzu could strike again, Tao blocked the attack, but she collapsed soon after, clearly affected. Pazuzu was impressed. Silpha had resisted his miasma longer than anyone, and Tao's strength caught his attention. When Tao started to falter, he captured her. He thought she had stayed behind to serve him, but she said she had been waiting for a hottie. She launched a powerful attack but overused her energy and was swallowed by a puppet monster that regenerated instantly. As Pazuzu grew more confident, Tao sensed that her ally, the hottie, was closer than he thought. She shouted that he was coming, but before she could finish, the puppet swallowed her. Meanwhile, Lloyd realized the miasma was how Pazuzu controlled the bear wolves. Pazuzu bragged about killing their parents and using the miasma to dominate them, claiming no one could oppose him. Lloyd called him a jerk, and to Pazuzu's shock, moved freely through the miasma. Lloyd was even more surprised when he found out Grimm was a demon. Pazuzu insulted Grimm for protecting humans, but Grimm chose to watch Pazuzu suffer rather than help. Pazuzu sent more demons to attack, but Lloyd wanted to test his new powers. There were too many monsters, so Grimm told him to use a lot of mana, which Lloyd managed perfectly. He broke Pazuzu's control over the bear wolves and freed Tao. Lloyd even transformed his mana into flowers, which reminded the bear wolves of their pride. They attacked as a pack, showing their strength in ways the puppets could not match. Pazuzu, desperate to prove he was strong, punished the wolves, calling them mangy mutts, even though he had killed their parents. He warned Lloyd that magic would never work on a demon, but Lloyd remembered Grimm's words. Demons couldn't be removed by magic. With his minions no longer getting mana, Pazuzu declared he would show his true power. But Lloyd noticed something. Pazuzu's attacks didn't affect him at all. Excited, he went all out, treating the fight like a lab experiment rather than a battle. Pazuzu tried to escape, but Lloyd chased him relentlessly, testing his spellcasting. Casting 240 spells a minute, Lloyd trapped Pazuzu in a barrier despite his desperate pleas. Pazuzu tried bribery, threats, and begging, but Lloyd kept going, focused on avenging the bear wolves. Grimm explained that magic affected demons like annoying sounds affect humans, making Pazuzu suffer while Lloyd stayed calm and curious. When everyone woke from the miasma, Lloyd quickly made up a story. A man named Robert had saved them. The town celebrated the return of Prince Albert, confusing Silpha. Tao realized she had been tricked into wearing Lloyd's poncho. Albert praised Robert, but it was clear Lloyd had done most of the work. Albert suggested Lloyd join the royal succession, shocking everyone, though Lloyd calmly refused. Outside, a bear wolf had followed the team home. Lloyd named it Shiro and planned to teach it commands using mana, impressing Grimm. Silpha noticed, thinking it was normal for monster tamers, while the king assumed Lloyd was being humble by refusing the throne. Albert disagreed, saying the throne was too small for him. Still, the king stayed curious about Lloyd's future as the team enjoyed the aftermath of their victory. Lloyd had been teaching Shiro basic commands, but the more complex ones proved harder for the bearwolf to understand. Whenever a command spell confused Shiro, Lloyd and the team decided to seek help from Princess Eliez. Previously, Tower Grimm had been amazed by the monsters in her garden, and Lloyd explained that Eliez, his sister and Salum's sixth princess, loved all animals, even monsters. When Elize arrived, she immediately overwhelmed Lloyd with affection, causing him to faint. Her maid Eris scolded her, yet Eliza couldn't help herself. She identified Shiro as a bearwolf, although her eccentric behavior made Silpha doubt her ability to help. Lloyd asked to see one of her other monsters, so she revealed Liru, a lesser-class Fenrir. Grimm was stunned, and Lloyd was shocked that Liru had slipped past his detection. Elise must have given it complex orders without showing any signs. Excited, Lloyd begged her to teach him how to communicate with Shiro. Elise agreed, saying that love was the key. Then she demonstrated as the animals in her tower showered her with affection. Eris thought Elize was naturally talented, but Elize insisted anyone could learn. During the demonstration, the animals overwhelmed everyone. Silpha was surprised to see Lloyd genuinely interested in love, even imagining him asking her to teach him more. Lloyd realized that he had been trying to give Shiro orders directly, whereas Aliza hadn't commanded her animals at all. Instead, she shared her will with them. He noticed that her mana flowed directly from her mind to theirs, allowing her to connect and subconsciously show them what she wanted. Therefore, Lloyd decided to try sharing a mental image of his will, and everyone was amazed when Shiro followed the command perfectly. Elise praised Lloyd, saying that his technique was how monster tamers connected with creatures. Silpha was impressed, although a little disappointed it hadn't gone exactly as she expected. Elise was slightly unhappy too, thinking it was supposed to be about love, not complicated mental sharing. Lloyd explained that love was still an important part of the technique, and everyone swooned over him. As a result, Lloyd now knew how to connect with monsters. Silpha suggested he use that focus for sword training. Just then, Albert arrived wanting to talk to Lloyd. They argued over who would take Lloyd with them, and Albert revealed that he wanted Lloyd to meet his older brother, Diane, the fourth principal, to test the enchanted swords he'd created. Diane specialized in smiting in Bartram, which explained his interest in enchanting. Without wasting time, he cut to the chase, ready to test Lloyd's skills. Lloyd began the process, but Diane doubted he would succeed with a spellbound sword like Albert's. He thought he would need to teach Lloyd a lesson, yet he was stunned when Lloyd successfully completed the enchantment. Albert didn't blame Diane because Lloyd's technique was unique. Diane was amazed at the spell engraving, which reinforced strength, elasticity, self-cleaning, and self-repair. Excitedly, he thought Lloyd could help him create the ultimate spellbound sword. Diane planned to engrave the spell while forging steel for a superweapon, requiring both an enchanter and a smith. He wanted to make a sword that shot fire when swung, so Lloyd suggested the Pans in Size enchantment. The formula required 14 parts, but the sword could only handle 5. Therefore, Lloyd compressed it to 2. When he applied it, the steel shattered. Lloyd felt terrible for wasting mana essence. Yet Grimm noticed something that helped him. Diane encouraged him to keep trying, saying they had plenty of cheap mana essence. Lloyd purified it and found it barely contained any hematite. Enchanting spellbound swords required more hematite, and Lloyd's mana essence, made from monster cores, was rare. Diane had none, so Lloyd planned to hunt monsters in a dungeon. Silpha suggested they go together, but Lloyd pointed out that, as a prince, he wasn't supposed to. Silpha reminded him that the king had changed his mind after the monster hunt incident, wanting Lloyd to broaden his horizons. Consequently, they headed to the Adventurers Guild. Lloyd registered and touched a crystal ball to measure his strength. He suppressed his mana to avoid drawing attention. Even though he received an E rank, his magic ranked as A, like a seasoned sorcerer. Katarina was impressed, but other adventurers were angry at the comparison to the legendary Silver Blader. Silpha wanted a dungeon quest, however; those required B-rank adventurers. She re-registered, and an adventurer suggested teaming up with her. After a quick lesson from Silpha, Katarina revealed she was the Silver Blader. Since re-registering would have dropped her to C rank, that wasn't an option. Tao arrived, ready to help. Silpha ignored her, planning to go home, yet Tao insisted, realizing she had become A rank after hunting dungeons to find Robert. She offered to help if she could go on a date with Albert. Katarina suggested a dungeon quest, and Silpha took back Lloyd's cloak. Lloyd was stunned by Silpha's legendary past, including failing to defeat the Assassin Ass's guild as a child. The trio entered the dungeon and found a chest. Meanwhile, Albert and Diane discussed the looming war. Diane told Albert to hold on, since Lloyd would return with the materials to mass-produce spellbound weapons, which could protect the kingdom. Diane was impressed by Lloyd, and Albert was already confident in him. When Lloyd returned with the monster core, they forged a new sword, which Diane tested. The magic power was overwhelming, and Lloyd realized he'd gone too far with the enchantments. The sword was named Die Lord. Later that night, Lloyd sensed something strange in the garden, a weird hole in space that even Shiro hadn't noticed. He wondered what it could be. Seeing a mysterious figure lurking outside, Lloyd immediately rushed to the courtyard to confront the intruder. However, realizing she had been spotted, the figure tried to flee, but Lloyd quickly threw up a barrier trapping her. Intending to have a chat since she was trespassing, he approached cautiously. Then, the figure dropped her disguise, revealing herself as a girl with questionable fashion choices. She apologized, yet warned that she might need to use her special move against him. Suddenly, Lloyd felt his head go fuzzy and smelled flowers. At that moment, he realized he had been poisoned and attempted a purification spell, only to be told by the girl that it wouldn't work. Her poison couldn't be cleansed. Lloyd collapsed, but he stayed calm, recognizing it as a toxin from a blighted individual. Soon after, the poison moth, Ren, revealed herself and weakened his barrier before vanishing, warning that the poison would cause suffering for 3 days. Despite the pain, Lloyd used a healing breath spell to ease the effects, keeping himself on his feet. Grimm asked why he hadn't chased Ren, so Lloyd explained he would follow her to the Assassin's Guild, tracking her by sensing tears in space. Meanwhile, Ren reported to the guild that she hadn't killed Lloyd, but had gathered intel on the spellbound swords. Their conversation about the leader, Jade, was interrupted when they realized someone was watching. At that moment, Lloyd revealed himself, shocking the assassins, who immediately knew they couldn't let him go. Consequently, Lloyd intentionally dropped his barrier to face them fully because he wanted to test their unique mana traits. First, Babylon, the Warp-Blighted, attacked with rapid kicks, but Lloyd blocked them easily using Ta's defense techniques. Babylon introduced himself, yet Lloyd remained unshaken. Next, Crow, the Curse-Blighted, pushed Lloyd to the ground with his power. Then Galilea, a big guy with sticky abilities, tried to trap him, but Lloyd used a physical enhancement spell to dodge, breaking free. While landing in webs, he stripped off his clothes to escape, leaving himself in his underwear. During this, he reflected on the new abilities he faced. Afterwards, the final assassin, Talia, the Pain-Blighted, stepped in. She stabbed herself in the leg, causing Lloyd to feel the same pain. Despite this, he was exhilarated, learning from the fight. When she attacked again, he dodged and healed quickly, which surprised her. Then, forming two swords from cloth, Lloyd mimicked Silpha's fighting style. Galilea panicked, recognizing Lloyd's stance from a past adventurer who had defeated him. Charging forward, Lloyd tested Babylon, slamming him to the ground and observing how he handled pain. Babylon relaxed, his body rubbery, so Lloyd moved on. Crow and Galilea attacked together, but Lloyd dodged, redirecting Crow's curse onto Galilea. Afterwards, he focused on Crow, briefly slowed by cursed speech, yet intrigued by how it worked. Galilea tried to strike back, but got caught in webs from Talia's clothes, leaving her exposed. Lloyd, unfazed, attacked her. She warned him that damage to her would affect him, but he slammed her into a wall anyway. Galilea tried to trap Lloyd's arms, yet he effortlessly slipped free and blasted him away using Talia's technique. Ren, terrified of Lloyd, was the last he hadn't fought, but Galilea stepped in to protect her. Lloyd realized that none of them could fully control their powers, which explained why they were called blights. Consequently, he came up with a plan: dodge Galilea's attack and zap him in the back with a spell. Ren tried to help, but Galilea reassured her he was stronger than before thanks to the spell regulating his mana. Then Lloyd offered to do the same for the rest of the guild, curing their blights and giving them a chance at normal lives. With their hostility gone, Galilea wanted to share their backstory. He explained that Jade, their leader, could teleport and had brought them together as the Assassin's Guild, but after an accident, Jade vanished. As Galilea finished, a teleportation ring appeared, and a black envelope materialized. Meanwhile, Silpha tracked Lloyd's scent to the hideout, yet only found a letter on the wall. She brought it to Albert, who read that Lloyd was traveling with the Assassin's Guild to the Lord Ost Kingdom, a place threatening war with Saloum. Albert worried that Lloyd might have been forced into this, but he doubted anyone could capture him. When Silpha showed Lloyd's clothes covered in strange goo, Albert realized their peace plan was off, so they prepared for a fight. Meanwhile, Lloyd and the Assassin's Guild were teleported at high speed to the Lord Ost Kingdom. After the letter appeared, Galilea immediately recognized the symbol as Jade's. Excitedly, they opened it and discovered Jade apologizing for the delay. In the message, he explained that he had overthrown the Lord of Lord Ost, who had been plotting a war, and that he was now the new lord. Moreover, he wanted to celebrate with them. Everyone cheered while Lloyd felt a quiet happiness of his own. Afterward, Galilea knelt before him, thanking Lloyd for helping control their curses, but reminded him that they still had to head to Lord Ost. Galilea promised to repay him for his assistance, yet Ren had a different idea. She wanted Lloyd to help engrave a spell on Jade to control his blight. Although Lloyd agreed, he wondered where the letter had come from. Since it had appeared out of nowhere, it must have been teleported, which meant Jade could manipulate teleportation magic, a power still shrouded in mystery in their world. While they couldn't be certain of the letter's authenticity, Ren trusted Jade, though worry lingered in her eyes. Lloyd reassured her, promising that he would have their backs if anything went wrong. Galilea praised Lloyd again, and Ren, moved by his kindness, began to develop feelings for him. Later, Lloyd paused the flight spell, frustrated that they couldn't travel faster without endangering themselves. After 10 minutes, they decided to walk the remaining distance since it was near. Ren offered to gather food, and Lloyd assisted Babylon. During their walk, Babylon revealed that Ren was trying to impress Lloyd because of her tragic past. She had accidentally poisoned her parents and survived alone until Jade had found her. Despite the risk, Jade had taken her in. Galilea had become her teacher, while Crow and Talia helped her adjust, even making her clothes. Eventually, Jade neutralized her poison powers, allowing Ren to finally feel part of a family. This revelation piqued Lloyd's curiosity, and he became genuinely interested in meeting Jade. When Ren returned from hunting and cooked, everyone hesitated to try the food. Babylon jokingly asked Crow to improve it with curse speech, but Ren punched him to stop. Talia suggested that Lloyd, being a prince, might not like it, yet he ate it without hesitation. Surprisingly, it wasn't the worst meal he had experienced. His previous life had been far worse. Encouraged, the others tried it too, and though the food looked unappetizing, it tasted decent once you got used to it. Considering her lack of experience, Ren had done well, and she hoped to one day share her cooking with Jade. In a flashback, Jade had brought good news. The guild might lift the bounties on their heads. Everyone celebrated, though Jade cautioned them not to get carried away. Even so, they partied, recognizing it as a small step toward acceptance. During the celebration, Jade confessed that he was the third prince of Lord Ost. His family had long planned wars, and he had used the team to accomplish his own goals. While he expected anger, the guild didn't care about his motives. They had already suspected his royal background from the way he carried himself, though Ren was completely unaware and panicked. As she processed the information, the others shared that they had all endured troubled pasts they rarely discussed. Therefore, regardless of his reasons, Jade was still family. They explained that they would have remained silent if he hadn't confessed, yet now they were ready to support him against the Lord Ost family. However, Jade refused, knowing that involving the Assassin's Guild could have disastrous consequences. It might ruin the bounty reconsideration and worsen the situation. Even though he had always viewed the guild as family, he couldn't remain idle while Lord Ost plotted war. He asked them to promise that the guild would continue, even if he didn't return. Furthermore, if he failed to come back, he would assume the role of Lord Ost's ruler and vowed to make it a haven for the blighted. Upon hearing this, even Grimm realized the extent of Jade's power and responsibility. Once they finished eating, they continued toward Lord Ost, though Lloyd fell asleep along the way. Consequently, Galilea carried him. Ren led the group, voicing her concerns. She didn't think Jade would betray them, yet she worried that the Lord Ost family might manipulate him. She suggested letting Lloyd sleep while they scouted ahead. Galilea agreed, adjusted Lloyd, and asked Grimm to watch over him. Grimm wasn't thrilled. Lloyd was nearly invincible, even in slumber. But he agreed, recognizing the need to prevent trouble in Lord Ost. Finally, they arrived at the castle, which matched Jade's description. A grand party was underway. Grimm didn't sense hostility, so he planned to escort Lloyd and leave. Galilea began mentioning Jade's peculiar interest in Lloyd, but before she could continue, a staff member recognized them as members of the Assassin's Guild and guided them to the banquet. Everything appeared fine, and Grimm ready to leave, yet Ren asked him to stay a little longer. Then Jade entered, looking completely different. He quickly switched back to his usual clothes, demonstrating that he had mastered his powers. Ren struggled to speak, yet Jade twisted the situation. The guests turned hostile, and he pinned them with cursed speech. He announced that they could choose from the blighted he had collected. Grimm attacked Jade to buy the others time to escape. However, Grimm soon glimpsed the horrifying truth. Gizarme, a demon, had taken control of Jade's body and kicked Grimm across the room. By chance, Grimm landed near Lloyd and woke him, explaining the events unfolding in the castle. Ren, clinging to hope, demanded an explanation. Gizarme revealed that he had possessed Jade. The real Jade was dead. He had tormented Jade's mind for months until Jade had chosen to end his life to prevent Guisam from harming his friends. Before dying, Jade had been healed temporarily by the demon. As Gizarme prepared to possess Ren, he taunted her about her poison abilities, but he became enraged when he saw the mark Lloyd had placed on her. Ren resisted, demanding to know who had done it. Just then, massive barriers surrounded the guild members, and a devastating death laser erupted, obliterating everything. Furious, Lloyd was ready for a fight. The demons freaked out when they saw Lloyd's power because he had just unleashed it. However, before dealing with them, he first checked on the Assassin's Guild crew. Therefore, he patched up Ren's injury while Grimm filled him in on everything that had happened. Lloyd knew they needed to get out fast because staying would put everyone in danger. Consequently, he told the crew to leave while he handled the rest. Ren disagreed, but Galilea stopped her, explaining that they would only get in the way. Since they weren't strong enough to fight Gizarm, it was better to leave the battle to Lloyd. Meanwhile, the demons panicked, thinking Lloyd's blast had killed Gizarmi. However, the demon teleported back and ordered them to chase the guild. The crew was good at hiding, so Gizarme might never find them if they escaped. Then the demons rushed forward, but Lloyd wasn't letting them go. He blasted them with more death lasers, taking out all except Gizarme, who teleported out of danger. A few demons tried to ambush Lloyd, and then Gisarm took the opportunity to curse him, saying he should die. Lloyd blocked it with a barrier, but the spell slipped through. His brain worked fast, giving him time to react. Dodging seemed smart, however, he was curious about the spell's effect. Before he could act recklessly, Grimm forced him to dodge, and the curse hit a demon instead, killing it instantly. Later, Lloyd used analysis magic and discovered that the spell killed the demon internally, while the body died of a heart attack. Grimm warned Lloyd not to fight Guizarme directly because his magic drew from mana and bypassed barriers. While regular spells could block attacks, mana-based attacks couldn't. Pazuzu would have been easier, but Gisarm's mana could kill Lloyd outright. Moreover, Gisarm looked down at the surviving demons with disdain. Grimm explained that they were only 10th class, weak compared to enemies they had faced before. Lloyd assumed Gisarm was first class, but Grimm revealed that he was a demon lord with immense power. Even 100th class demons wouldn't stand a chance. Therefore, Grimm urged them to leave, but Lloyd flew closer to Gisarm anyway. Guizarme asked who Lloyd was. Lloyd introduced himself as the 7th prince. However, Gizarme didn't care because Jade had wanted to meet him. Lloyd said he would have liked to meet Jade, but not now, because Gisarm had interfered. Then Gisarm got annoyed at Lloyd destroying his minions in base. Both prepared to fight, but Grimm urged Lloyd to escape. Lloyd knew Gisarm was stronger than the 10th class demons. However, he still called them strong and resistant to sorcery. Gisarme launched the fight by forming a mana spike and sending it at Lloyd. The attack almost broke through Lloyd's barrier, which panicked Grimm because it was the first time he had seen anything damage it. Then Gisarme fired mana sword projectiles. Lloyd dodged expertly, but he lost layers of his shield. Focused on dodging, he forgot that Gisarme could teleport. Consequently, he got caught off guard when Gisarme appeared in front of him, shattering the barrier and sending him flying into swords. Quickly, Lloyd cast an earth puppet spell to shield himself. Meanwhile, Galilea and the others watched, amazed at the battle's scale, while the demons chased the assassins across the bridge. Galilea told Babylon to hurry so they could reach the gate. Later, Lloyd continued fighting calmly, while Grimm panicked. He asked for help, but Lloyd stayed collected. Gisarme was shocked that Lloyd had escaped unharmed, saying he had only pressured him with teleportation. Lloyd responded that teleportation didn't originally belong to Gisarme. Then, Gisarm explained that having snatched Jade's body allowed him to use teleportation because, unlike Jade, he was a mana master born with power. Confident, he teleported to stab Lloyd with swords, mocking him and claiming he had no chance. He named his power Shadow Wolf and thought he had won. Meanwhile, the demons chased the assassins, demanding their bodies. However, the guild fought back. Galilea trapped demons with webs, Crow used cursed speech, and Babylon opened the gate for escape. Just as they were leaving, the demons broke free. Galilea considered staying behind, but Talia stepped up. She crippled the demons with her power and warned the crew to stay clear, urging them to run. Ren refused to leave Talia behind because she knew Talia couldn't escape with her injured leg. The demons began to heal from Talia's pain, which also healed her. Determined, Talia stabbed her foot again, forcing the demons to feel it and allowing her crew to escape. She promised not to let them take her body. However, Ren still tried to grab her. Galilea pushed Ren back, locked the gate, and stayed with Talia. The demons would break through soon, so they had to act fast. Galilea realized that Talia was ready to sacrifice herself, but he wouldn't let her do it alone. As the demons panicked, they understood that Talia would take them out with her life. Galilea blocked their way while Ren pleaded with them, asking why they had to die when freedom was so close. Meanwhile, Talia, understanding Jade's pain, slashed her neck without hesitation, willing to protect her friends at any cost. Gisarme looked down in disgust, seeing their lives as pathetic. He had expected more from Lloyd, thinking that Talia's sacrifice might matter if Lloyd fought harder. Then he heard a crumble where Lloyd should have been. Turning, he saw Lloyd in action. He had used a decoy to catch Gisarme off guard. With an enchanted sword, the fight intensified. Lloyd suggested moving the battle elsewhere to avoid bystanders. Before Talia could act, fireballs rained from the gate. Galilea grabbed Talia to protect her. Meanwhile, the demons burned, and the source of the attacks became clear. The rest of Lloyd's family had arrived. Albert led the charge, bringing chaos but rescuing Lloyd. The demons were burning crispy, and Ren finally felt some relief because help had arrived. Meanwhile, Crow looked around and felt like he had seen Silpha before, although he couldn't remember where. Then Albert and Silpha noticed him staring and immediately glared at the assassins. Because the assassins knelt in terror, Albert quickly decided their fate. Diane insisted that they focus on the demon mob first. However, Silpha argued that they needed to deal with the assassins before anything else. She demanded to know where Lloyd was. The assassins panicked, and Silpha pulled out a pocket watch, threatening to kill one for each lie. Then Galilea admitted that Lloyd was fighting at the castle. Albert asked who he was fighting and why, and Ren explained that Lloyd was taking on the demon boss for their sake. However, Babylon reminded everyone of their promise to keep Lloyd's strength a secret. Ren stammered nervously, and Silpha warned him that time was almost up. Panicked, he claimed Lloyd was fighting a weakling, and the others tried to back him up, making them look foolish. Because Silpha didn't trust them, she was ready to kill Ren, but Albert stepped in to prevent it. Meanwhile, Galilea flattered Albert, but he silenced him. Then, he pulled out Lloyd's underwear and demanded to know why Lloyd would fight for people who had stripped him. Galilea awkwardly explained that they were just drying them, which only made the situation worse. Albert and Silpha went into full murder mode. However, Ren stepped forward and admitted that they were outcasts, ready for punishment. She begged them to believe her just once, explaining that the demons had taken Jade and that Lloyd was fighting to save them. Before anyone could respond, a demon-possessed fool attacked. Then Princess Eliez arrived on her fox, Liru, who immediately bit and swallowed the demon. Moreover, Ellie vouched for Ren, saying that Liru would have eaten her first if she had bad intentions. Therefore, Albert trusted his sister and ordered the demons to be prioritized, telling Silpha to find Lloyd. Ren panicked, clinging to Silpha, but Silpha warned her to let go because they needed to move fast. Suddenly, a teleportation circle appeared, and dark spears rained down, destroying the bridge. Diane saw demons flanking them, so Albert immediately ordered a retreat. However, Silpha was upset because the bridge had been destroyed at Lloyd's request for his fight. Meanwhile, Guzarme sent spears at Lloyd, but he dodged effortlessly, ready to go all out because he saw Albert and the crew handling the demons. The demons on the ground were set on fire by the knights, but they regenerated instantly. Albert realized the demons were highly resistant to magic and hesitated to kill them because they still had human bodies. Then Diane threw a massive fireball, barely affecting them, and the knights wielding magic swords were running out of energy. Therefore, Albert decided to let Liru and Silpha get close. However, when he looked back, Silpha was gone. She was on Shiro, heading toward the broken bridge. Shiro leapt and fell into the river, and Silpha prepared to follow. Then a demon attacked her, but she dodged the first strike and blocked the rest with her swords. The attacker was the Humpty Dumpty demon, who praised her skills and claimed he was stronger as an 8th class demon, a master of the demon blade technique. Silpha wondered about Pazuzu's class, but she ignored it, noting that Humpty seemed weaker. Meanwhile, Albert still searched for ways to save the possessed when a demon attacked him. Then Babylon suddenly appeared, twisting the demon's neck 180 degrees. Albert thanked him, and Babylon said he acted like their leader, Jade, calm and decisive, because the demon-possessed were beyond saving. The demon collapsed, unable to regenerate. Therefore, Albert drew his sword, cast a flame spell, and ordered the knights to attack fully. Meanwhile, Silpha and Humpty Dumpty clashed with rapid strikes. He countered with drills and flying slashes, but she deflected them easily. Moreover, their special moves shook the bridge. After separating, Silpha's hairband broke, and blood dripped from her forehead. Humpty laughed, saying humans couldn't win and wanted her body to master his technique. He charged using the Lordost sword technique, slicing her dress, but she dodged. Then he showed off his rough hands as proof of experience, declaring he would take her body. However, Silpha leapt and copied the same demon move, shocking him. She said she learned it just by watching, not needing to possess a body. Afterwards, Silpha called Shiro, who returned with a special sword Lloyd had made for her. She unsheathed it and told Humpty to see what humans could achieve. The sword had been broken a few days ago, but Lloyd and Diane arrived with a new magic sword. Lloyd explained that it wasn't filled with fancy spells, but was strong and flexible enough to handle her power and slice through demons. Silpha asked why he chose those spells, and Lloyd nervously explained that he noticed she held back, worried the sword might break. Therefore, Silpha hugged him, overjoyed, thanking him for being thoughtful. Then Diane suggested naming the sword. Remembering her failure against Pazuzu, Silpha named it Demon Bane, vowing never to lose to a demon again. She declared she would prove its worth right there and then. Humpty, though angry, was nervous. He revealed Gizarm's plan to lure Jade back with false rumors of war, which eventually led to Jade's fatal return. The assassins were furious. Ren, full of rage, charged at Humpty, but Silpha stopped her, promising to avenge Jade and protect the kingdom. Finally, Humpty tried his ultimate move, but Silpha swiftly sliced him into pieces with Demon Bane and sheathed it. Her cold, precise demeanor sent a clear warning to all who opposed them. Silpha walked to Humpty Dumpty and knelt gracefully. Before the demon takeover, she thought he must have been an incredible warrior and swordsman, and she would have loved to spar with him. Meanwhile, the assassins paid their respects, and Silpha noticed Ren crying. She asked if Ren knew him. Ren shook her head but admitted that she felt sorry for him. Then Silpha stood, brushed herself off, and told Ren and the others that they weren't cut out to be assassins. After hearing this, Galilea and Crow finally realized that Silpha was the legendary adventurer they had fought years ago. Suddenly, an explosion erupted behind them, filling the area with steam. Silpha was confused, and the assassins could barely see the river, which had now vaporized. Ren immediately realized that Lloyd must be involved and worried for him. A few minutes earlier, Lloyd was flying while Gizarme launched dark spear discs at him. Lloyd dodged, but he quickly realized that he needed a new strategy because the spears could cut through regular barriers, though his heavy-duty barrier kept him safe. Just as Lloyd thought he was clear, the magic ribbon on one spear unwrapped and seeped into his barrier. He recognized it as Gizarme's cursed speech, which controlled the barrier's shape. Therefore, Lloyd had to drop it, knowing it couldn't block the attack. Although the cursed speech moved slowly, it was deadly, and Gizarme's combined attacks kept Lloyd constantly on guard. Meanwhile, Lloyd dodged teleportation circles as the dark spears shot out, Shadow Wolf in action. He knew that even a brief pause could trap him. Because Gizarme had infinite mana, the fight could last until Lloyd was drained. Frustrated, Lloyd went on the offensive. He double-cast to summon a flame golem, but Gizarme grinned, dodged, and teleported away. Then the golem crashed into the river, turning the area into thick steam. Lloyd couldn't see clearly, but he used chi to sense Gizarme nearby. Grim warned him that Shadow Wolf was approaching, and Lloyd agreed, flying off to intercept. Then it hit him. Why hadn't Gizarme attacked earlier? Lloyd recalled Gizarme's letter about needing to see his target. Realizing the strategy, he used the steam to sneak up, telling Grim to stay quiet. Gizarme, blind in the steam, waited for it to clear. Lloyd charged at full speed, summoning earth magic clones. At first, Gizarme couldn't tell which Lloyd was real, and he let himself be hit. The clones attacked, but Gizarme quickly figured out which one struck him and stabbed it with dark spears, sending Lloyd flying. The injury healed instantly, and Gizarme smirked, claiming that even physical attacks were useless because he could survive brain or heart damage. Then he tore through the clones. He had hardened his body to block any physical damage, realizing that he had let Lloyd hit him to find the real one. However, the clones surrounded him, and he was confused when the body he attacked turned out to be just another clone. Shocked, he searched for the real Lloyd. Suddenly, a powerful flame hit him from a blind spot. The real Lloyd had hidden among the clones. After landing the hit, Lloyd quickly moved the clones to mask his position. Afterwards, Lloyd created more Earth clones that talked to confuse Gizarme. Gizarme regenerated and teleported new clothes while summoning dark spears to destroy the clones. When one spear hit a barrier, he realized the real Lloyd's presence and tried to crush him only to find another clone. Gizarme laughed, enjoying the fight, while Lloyd sneaked closer, invisible. Meanwhile, a dark spear grazed him, but he kept moving. Grim panicked, noticing that Lloyd wasn't using a barrier. Because Lloyd's sword, Spelltaker, could absorb and analyze spells, he planned to use it on Gizarme. Therefore, he sliced through a teleportation circle, decoding the spell. Magical symbols surrounded him, and he called out to Jade. As darkness split, he saw a bright space and understood the magic. Then he canceled the invisibility spell, leaving Gizarme surprised and smirking, asking if Lloyd was done playing. Lloyd calmly said he understood now, showing Gizarme that he could no longer rely on raw power. Guisarme invited Lloyd to join him, promising world domination. However, Lloyd laughed, calling him foolish for relying on brute strength without understanding its source. He explained that humans, though weak, create through desire, which fuels endless magic. Then Guisarme teleported to strike, but Lloyd landed a crushing chi-infused punch. Guisarme screamed in pain as Lloyd mocked him, realizing he hadn't even used mana. Moreover, Lloyd explained that magic evolved through knowledge and taunted Guisarme to make his next move. Guisarme laughed off the mockery but attacked again. Lloyd countered, asking if he remembered Jade's last words. This triggered Guisarme, who cursed Jade and Lloyd before teleporting for a strike. Then Lloyd kicked Guisarme, sending him crashing to the ground. Without pause, Lloyd unleashed chi-infused kicks, pushing Guisarme back. Although Guisarme teleported, Lloyd landed a swift kick to his mouth. Afterwards, he grabbed Guisarme, slammed him down, and pummeled him. Guisarme teleported again, but Lloyd anticipated it, delivering another brutal kick. Eventually, Guisarme smashed into a boulder, and Lloyd followed with a double-cast attack, sending him through a wall into a hole. He was flying toward magma, but Lloyd stayed on him, landing hit after hit. Then Lloyd asked if he had any other moves or if it was time to end it. Finally, Guisarme revealed his ultimate attack, condensing mana into a massive black ball and warning that nothing could stop it. Guisarme threw his dark sphere at Lloyd, but Lloyd raised his hand, and it vanished effortlessly. Guisarme couldn't believe his ultimate attack had failed and demanded an explanation. Lloyd casually said he had nullified it using the same technique. Guisarme was stunned. He couldn't understand how a regular person could use such powerful magic. Lloyd revealed that years ago he had learned the spell by studying countless magic books and testing it by blowing up mountains. Curious, he had tried using 2 copies at the same time. When they collided, they simply disappeared. Guisarme was shocked because the spell required immense mana. Lloyd shrugged, unimpressed with Guisarme's lack of creativity. Frustrated, Guisarme ranted that a mortal shouldn't speak to him that way. Lloyd sneezed, ignoring him completely. Enraged, Guisarme teleported behind Lloyd and grabbed his head, instantly regretting it. He felt the full force of Lloyd's power up close and froze in fear. Lloyd then asked if the void spell could kill a demon like Guisarme, and summoned several void spells that closed in on him. Guisarme tried to teleport, but Lloyd tracked him, landing a hit. Meanwhile, Liru, Shiro, and Silpha fought the demons below despite the fog. They noticed something strange. The demons weren't as strong as before. Ren explained that Silpha's poison was weakening them, though Silpha had to carefully control it. Albert, unable to see through the fog, was shocked that the sky was still dark, even though it was morning. The darkness came from Lloyd's mana, which was pulling Guisarme into the void spell. Guisarme tried to escape by abandoning his body, but was trapped by Jade's. He then tried to deceive Lloyd by pretending to be Jade, but Lloyd saw through it and finished him off. With Guisarme dead, Lloyd hid his mana, and sunlight broke through. Ren reflected on Jade's story about Lloyd. Jade had heard rumors about the 7th Prince of Saloon and the explosion at Lloyd's birth, which was a spell. Jade had believed in Lloyd's power and thought he could help them break their curses. What had started as a joke had become true. Afterwards, Lloyd and Grimm built a memorial for Jade. Grimm asked if it was worth being so far from everyone else, but Lloyd said it was perfect because it was about remembering Jade, not burying anyone. Grimm praised Lloyd for the impressive void spell, though it moved slowly. Lloyd explained that he had analyzed Guisarme's teleportation to dodge attacks and land hits. It hadn't been easy. One mistake could have killed him. The real breakthrough had come from Jade, who had set up the perfect teleportation spell, knowing someone would come to defeat Guisarme. In the end, Jade was the real hero. Later, Albert appeared and asked who the grave was for. Lloyd remained silent, but Albert already knew. It was for Jade, former leader of the Assassin's Guild and ruler of Lord Ost. The guild had told Albert about Jade's revolt and asked Lloyd for help. They fabricated a story to protect Lloyd, claiming he had taken down the demon-possessed Jade's body. Despite their noble intentions, the guild had a dark past. They had taken lives and even kidnapped a royal family member to join their war. They admitted their actions could lead to execution, but promised to serve Lloyd for life to make up for it. Albert asked if taking in the Assassin's Guild would be like adopting pets. Lloyd agreed, saying he would take responsibility for the guild. It was the first time Albert saw him care so deeply for others. Albert reminded him that being the 7th prince didn't exempt him from consequences. Above all, Lloyd was Albert's little brother, and Albert would always love him, maybe a little too much. Tao burst in, thinking Lloyd was in trouble, but realized she had missed all the action and turned red with embarrassment. She started to leave, but Albert chased her down to thank her one last time. Everyone followed. Once alone, Grimm was surprised by Lloyd's soft side. Lloyd insisted he only accepted the guild for their special mana, which could lead to new magical discoveries. Seeing Lloyd care so much, Grimm understood why a memorial for Jade was meaningful. The Assassin's Guild was released because Lloyd took responsibility for them. They promised to serve him in gratitude. Later, Albert arranged a tea party. Tao felt nervous because the royal family was present, but Albert told her to relax. She agreed to enjoy it. Silpha still had issues with Tao and accidentally spilled tea on her, sparking a small fight. Albert encouraged the guild to enjoy themselves too, and they partied wildly in honor of Jade. Crow cried at Jade's grave, sensing his strength. Talia tried to get Albert to drink, but he refused, so she used her powers to make him feel drunk. Albert, annoyed, went after Galilea to demand answers about Lloyd's sticky situation. The girls, meanwhile, relaxed by the river, now a hot spring. Ren asked Silpha about becoming Lloyd's maid, and Lloyd agreed. Ren was surprised, but soon learned she could control her poison with practice, eventually becoming a skilled pharmacist. She vowed to serve Lloyd, and Silpha also became his maid. Lloyd met his father, but Albert took most of the credit for what happened in Lordost, allowing Lloyd to focus on his magic studies. The memorial, the party, and the guild's acceptance marked a new beginning, honoring Jade and cementing Lloyd's responsibility as both a prince and a protector of those who had once been outcasts.